Let's go over what we did last week. Then we can talk about functions today. Okay, so with last week we said for Python, we have some major ways that you can save data. Okay, so we said we already talked about the variables. So we said you can store data in a variable. Let's say you want to store someone's age, you can store it inside a variable. The next one is you can store someone's data, okay, in a database. Then the next thing is you can store it in a list. Okay, so last week we talked about lists. We said you can also store it in tuple. You can store it inside sets. You can store it inside a dictionary. Okay, the variable, dictionary, database. Okay, so these 6 are some of the forms that you can save data whenever you are programming in Python. Okay, so with last week's class, we talked about lists, and also in the database, we've also talked about some of them. We said for the list, okay, the list it has some properties. It's ordered, okay, and it's changeable. For the changeable, other people say it's mutable, okay. Changeable means anytime you have values inside the list, you can change it. And when you talk about the ordered, we said anytime you add a value to the list, okay, you add it at the end of it. It wouldn't order the data, or you cannot, the data will not be ordered automatically. Okay, it will just follow the format in which you added the data. Okay, so he said in the list, when you do like something like append, it will be added at the end of the data. For instance, we said the list has a syntax. So let me open my PyCharm. Okay, that's a software that we use to program Python. So I'll open my PyCharm. Let me just open a new project. So I'll start a new project. So at the top there, I'll click on the start file, then new project. Then I can name my project. So this is day 4. Day 4. Just click on create new window.
Hello. Hello, please. Are you showing the Python interface?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. So that's for PyCharm. So we said to create a new file. Okay. For instance, any application that you have, if we talk about the desktop applications, we talk about web applications, there are a number of files. For instance, the login page has one file, the sign up page has another file, all the other pages that you can talk about, they are all files. So we said you need to create a new file. So to create a new file, you just right click on the name of your folder. So at the left hand side, so you just right click on it, just type new, then you can select a Python file. Then you can name your Python file. For instance, you are creating the page or the file for your sign up. Okay, so sign up page. Click on enter to create your file for you. All right, so we said the syntax for the list is the name of it. So the name you want to give to it. So the name of the list. So the name of the list. Okay. Then equal to square brackets. Okay. So inside the square bracket, that's when you bring your data. So for instance, you have, let's say this list is for countries. So Ghana, you have Congo, you have Niger, you have Canada. All right. So we have this data, okay, inside a list. Now, the next thing is, why do we even use a list? We said in the database, whenever you are dealing with dynamic data, data that changes. Like if you are talking about Python and a real world data, a database. Anytime you pick a data, you cannot store them inside a variable because a variable is like this. The last time what we talked about. So example age, okay, it only stores for a single a single item. Okay, so that's for the variables. But for a list, you can store the ages of, or you see for this list, we've stored a number of countries in it. So we have Ghana, Congo, Niger, Canada inside one variable, which is a list. Okay, so that's why we use a list. So we said, for instance, if you use Twitter, Facebook, for instance, all the data that's being pushed or pulled from their databases, most of them are in a list form because they are not just pulling for a single item or a single age. They will just pull a number of them, then they can select for a specific user. So that's what we've done here. And also with last week's class, we said for if you have a number of or a list like this, you see it's grouped. If you want to pick for a particular one, for instance, you want to pick Congo. Okay, we said it's the name of the list. So let's name this list countries, African countries, or let's name it countries. So to access a country like Congo, we just write the name of the list. So it's countries, then square bracket again. Okay, so inside the square bracket, it will refer to the index where the Congo is located. Okay, so you see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 items in the countries list. Okay, but we said the first list we use 0. So Ghana is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's how we do it. So to access Congo, we just have to write the name of the list, square bracket, and inside the square bracket, we just refer to the position. All right, so in this case, this one will give us Congo. We said to show it to the user, okay, or the client. What you need to do is we just use print. Okay, so you can just print, and inside the square, the brackets, you can just refer this one. So let's see whether it's correct. So you said to run this code at the top there, you see run, click on it, click on run. Okay, then you can select the file. Okay, so we want to run the sign up page. All right, so at the console down here, we've been able to see Congo. If you want to see Niger, you just change it to 2 because it has 0, 1, 2. Okay, just save it 1, you see Niger. Okay, so we talked about this last week. And also we said, what if you want to access all the data inside the list? Because let's say the tweets that you see on Twitter, okay, it shows you a number of them. It shows you all the data that was pulled from the database. Okay, and in that sense, you cannot do print like this. You cannot do this. Let me just copy and paste. Okay, you cannot do this. Cannot do print 0, print 1, print 2, print 3. Okay, this one. Okay, so in this case, we've been able to access the data that we have in the list 1, 1. Okay, but here's the case, the data is dynamic. So the next day or in the next minute, someone can just come and add a tweet. Okay, Twitter might not know. So to avoid this, we said if you want to prevent repetitive actions, like you want to avoid repeating this one, you use for loops. Okay, so we use for loop to access the data inside the list. And we said to do that, this is a general syntax for the for loops. We just type for space, then the name that you want to give to each item inside the list. Okay, so country. Okay, the list is countries, but each of them is country. So for country, space in, then the name of the list. So countries. Then bring your colon. When you press enter, the next line will be indented. Okay, we said anytime you press enter and it's indented in Python, it means anything that you type are the children for the top one. Okay, so this is the top one, this is the parent. And when we press enter, it was indented. So it means anything that we type here will be the child for what you have at the top there. So now to print each of them, we can just do print bracket open, bracket close. Then you can just type a country, the one that you've done here. Okay. So if you run, it's the same thing. So we've gotten Ghana, Congo, Niger, Canada. So in this case, if you have this code and someone adds a different country, let's say Uganda, when you open the page, okay, and that means if you run the code, you still have Uganda. If you add, let's say, so let me just delete this. I'll delete this and I'll say tweets. Okay, let's use something like Twitter. So tweets, just do tweets. Just do the first one be Ghana is collapsing. Okay. The next one shall be what? The next one, someone tweeted, what is the time? Okay. All right. So once you run something like this, okay, you run it, you get it. So at any point in time, when you refresh your page, you'll be getting the latest data. Okay. So in Twitter, they use for loops to print the data. Facebook, they use for loops. On WhatsApp, they use for loops. So most of the applications that you see, they use for loops. Now, let's go to the next one. We said for lists, okay, this list that we are talking about, there are particular functions or actions you can perform on them. For instance, you can add a new data. Okay, you can add new data because we said it's changeable or it's mutable. You can order it. You can delete an item from it. You can do a whole lot of things with it because we said it's an object. Okay. So let's go through just two of them. And we said if you want to know some of the actions you can perform on a list, you can just Google. And once you Google, you see some of the things you can perform on it and how to use them. For instance, we have this data, and what we want to do is we want to add a new data to it. Okay. So to add the new data, we said you can use what we call append. So you can append a data to the end of it. So to do that, you can just do tweet, okay, the name of the list dot append. So once I click on the dot, you see the number of actions I can perform on the list. Okay, dot append. Then bracket open, bracket close, because we said for functions, that's how we declare functions. So inside the brackets, you can enter your argument. Okay. So what you want to add is, let's say you want to add, I just came. Okay. All right. So it means we've added I just came to what we already have at the top here. So let's print and see. So you can just print the list, what we have here, to see what we have. So let's run and see. All right. So now we have Ghana is collapsing, the first one. We have the second one. We have what's the time. Then we have the last one. I just came. Okay. So you can use append to touch data. The next thing that you can do is you can sort the data. Okay. For instance, Twitter, for instance, they sort it by date. Okay. So the ones that are current are always on top. So it means if they are showing it to the user, if they are showing to the user, they need to sort the data first. So if let's say you've inserted a tweet in Twitter, so let's say this is our database, we've been able to pull this data from our database. I think today we should start with that. How we pull data from databases with Python. All right, if you have time. All right, so we've been able to pull this data from our database and insert it into what we call the tweet. So you can sort it. Okay, so it has sort. So to sort it, you can either sort it in descending or ascending order. So you can just do tweets, okay, dot sort. Okay, you can just do this, just one. Okay, so just one and it will sort for you. All right. So if you want to, let's say, invert it or reverse it, because this is in ascending, so JIW, okay. Inside the what's the name? Inside the quote, you can just do reverse, okay, equals to then 2 if you want to invert it. Okay, so that means if I sorted it in descending order. So once the actions that I'm performing on the list, you cannot choose all of them. So that's what I said. Just Google on some of the actions you can perform on the list, and you get to know on what to use. Now, let's talk about our next thing. So last week we talked about the list. Today we talk about tuples. Okay, so tuple. So with the tuple, so we said the list. Let me just describe the list here. We said with the list is can be ordered, changeable. Okay. And also with the tuple is ordered. Okay. Then it's unchangeable. 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 All right. So that's the difference between the list and the tuple. Okay. Just one is mutable, the other is immutable. That means you cannot change the data. So for instance, we have this data. So let me just write the general syntax for writing a tuple. And why do we use tuples? Why would someone say, okay, I want to use tuple? And the other would say, okay. It depends on what you really want to do. Okay. So with the tuple, for instance, let's say I've picked data from the database. Okay, so let me just write it. So let me write the general syntax. So just the name of the tuple. So let me just name it my tuple. Okay. Equals. Then it's bracket open, bracket close. With the list, we used the square bracket. Okay. But with the tuple, we use bracket open, bracket close. And inside it, you can write our data. So hello. So hello, yeah, it was the network. Okay, so let's continue. All right. So with the tuple, we said it's unchangeable. Okay. So if it's unchangeable, it means we cannot append any data. Okay. We cannot make any changes to it. We cannot change any value. So to confirm this, let's just type let's try to append a value to it and see. So to do that, just type the name of the tuple dot. And once I click on the dot, you can see the things that I can do with it. I can only count, I can get the index of a value. I can, you see, these are the attributes or some of the actions I can perform on a tuple. Okay. But for instance, if you check the list, let's name a list here. So my list, okay. And let me just write something like hello, Ghana, okay, USA. Okay, so let's see some of the actions you can perform on the list. So my list dot. You see, you can perform all this. You can append, you can clear, you can insert, you can reverse, you can do a whole lot of things. But with the tuple dot this, you can count, you can index, you cannot append because of the characteristics. Okay. So that's why Python is used for AI. It's very, very accurate. Like how you want the data to be, like however you collected the data, you can say, okay, when it comes to my code, I don't want to change anything in it. I just want to use it as it is. Okay. But with the tuple, you can also access a value. So if I want to access the Ghana that I've written here, okay, you can just do that by just writing the name of the tuple, curly brackets. It's just the same as square brackets, just the same as the list. Then 1. Okay, we said it start from in the 0, 1, 2. So let me clear this and I'll just print this one out. So I just want to show this to the user. Just click on 1. Okay, so we've been able to access it just as we did for the list. So that's the tuple. So just know the difference between the two. Now for today's class, our main concern is functions. Okay, so functions is very, very important in programming or in anything that you want to do. For instance, without function, we wouldn't have anything like Excel. Okay, so what Excel they've done is they've written their functions, they've done their functions inside anywhere, and if you want to call it, you just call it and use it. It's the same thing. Because we said it's a programming language, I can just say come, and you know I said come. Okay, so these terms have been defined already. So I can just say they are functions because if I call any action, the object performs as I want it to do. Okay. And we said in programming language, we have two types of functions. We have the user defined, the one that the programmer will define, and also the one that is already built inside the language. So with these ones, the print that we see, the print is a function in Python. Okay. And it was defined by Python. It wasn't defined by me. You can check the code that I've written. I didn't define print. So let's look at how we can build our own functions. Okay. So we said to start or to build our own function, we just started with def, okay? Then space, the name we want to give to it. For instance, if I say come, you come. So let me just do show him. So let me just do show him, okay? All right, so that's the name of the function, show him. Then we said for any function, when the name comes, you have bracket open, bracket close. So you have our bracket open, bracket close. Then at the end of it, we just press colon. That's the general syntax. So once we press enter, it will take us to the next line, okay? But the next line is indented. It means this is the parent, whatever here will be child, okay? So show him, I just want to print, how are you, okay? How are you doing? All right, so I have this here. So it means if someone is inside my code, and the person uses show him, what I want to do is I just want to print whatever is inside the parent, that's the children here. How are you doing to the user? So let's say I've defined this one, the function here, and someone is inside the code, and yeah. Okay, so was the network? So I think we can continue. All right, so in the code, if anyone types show him once, okay, it will do what show him wants it to do, okay? So your hand, okay, for instance, you can say come here. So if I say come here, okay, come here, what I want come here to do is, let's say I want it to add 2 plus 2, okay? So I want it to add 2 plus 2 and show it to the user. So 2 plus 2. Okay, so that's my come here. So it means if in the code someone types come here, okay, remember we brought the bracket open, bracket close, because you can see this is a variable name, okay, But to distinguish functions from variables, yes, that's why we bring bracket open, bracket close. Okay. So if you run, it has given us 4. Okay, as you can see at the console. So that's user defined. So whatever you want it to do, you can make it to do that. So that's why there are a lot of scammers or hackers. They, even though they have buttons there, the button is login. But if you click on it, what they've defined under the button, that's how it will perform. Okay. So there are some functions they will say, click me to win a car or something. Once you click on it, they will just collect your password because of some definitions they've defined inside their functions. So that's what function does. Now, the next thing is, for instance, you want to build an application or you want to build an addition application for your child. Okay, so you want the hello, yes, okay, so it's back. All right, so as I was saying, I said, for instance,